Okay, in this video we're going to look at how you can create a dynamic y minus y1 equals mx minus x1 graph in GeoGebra. This file has three things on it that you can change. You can drag the point A, and in doing so you'll see that this equation here changes and the equation of the line changes, and this is the point x1, y1. You can also vary the gradient of the line, and again you see the equation changing there. And finally there's an arbitrary point on the line which you can move, and in doing so change this equation here, this calculation showing that the height is the gradient times the base for the gradient triangle wherever this point B is as it moves up or down the line. So let's start with a new GeoGebra file. Now your screen will probably start off without the grid lines on it, looking something like this. So first thing to do is to set those grid lines on. So this graphics toggle bar up here is a great way to interact with what's on the screen and edit what it looks like. So if I just turn that on and then click on the grid lines, I've got the grid lines there. Your font size might be a bit smaller than mine as well. That's easy to change with options, font size, and I've set mine about 20, 24 is quite good for classroom display purposes. So the first thing to do is add our point A. So if I click on the screen, I select the point tool, I get the blue square around it, click on the screen, and there is my new point. If I go back to cursor, either by clicking on cursor or pressing the escape key on my keyboard, I can then drag that point around. Note you do have to keep going back to cursor every time to move an object, or I would just add a new point if I didn't do that. Now I'm going to turn the coordinates of A into values x1 and y1. And the way to do this is I type in the input bar x_1, which is GeoGebra's way of doing subscripts, equals x open brackets capital A. That must be a lowercase x, so I want the x coordinate of the point, and again it's case sensitive, capital A. And there it is. Similarly in the input bar I can type y_1 equals lowercase y open brackets capital A, turning the number y1 into the y coordinate of A. And if I drag this around you should see those numbers changing dynamically over here in the algebra panel. Now I'm going to add a slider to control my gradient. So the penultimate button here is slider. I click on that, single left click on the screen, creates my slider, and I'm just going to overtype the name A with M because I want it to be my gradient, and apply. And again if I go back to my cursor I can see if I drag that, this number M changes dynamically. And the final step to get the line is literally type into the input bar y minus y_1, y minus y1 equals m brackets x minus x_1. Y minus y1 is mx minus x1. Hit enter, and there's my line. I can move the gradient with the slider, and I can vary the point by dragging it. You might notice that my line is represented in ax plus by equals c form. A quick right click on here and I can change the way it's displayed into y equals mx plus c, which will probably be more useful to a lot of students working at this level. And there it is. Now I'm going to add on this arbitrary point higher up the line and build my gradient triangle. So if I add a new point again, you'll notice as my cursor hovers over the line the cursor changes, and when the line's bold and the cursor changes from a crosshair to an arrow, I can click on the curve and that locks that point on the line. You can see now if I drag it, it moves up and down the line. Then I want to add perpendiculars to help me build my gradient triangle. So the perpendicular is a geometry tool, and you'll see its fourth one along there, perpendicular line. With that selected, I can click once on the point and once on the line to make the perpendicular, and the same at A. There's two inputs to perpendicular line, which you'll see if I hover over it, a point and the line it's perpendicular to, and it will be a single left click on each one. So a single left click on A and a single left click on the y-axis creates this perpendicular line. with this tool still selected, a single left click on B and a single left click on the x-axis will create that perpendicular line. And finally then, I want to turn this point of intersection into an actual point, and here if I look on the point tools, now these tools are actually drop downs, and if you hover over the red triangle at the bottom corner of them, you get related tools. So all my tools related to points are all on this menu, and I can change this tool now to intersection. You'll see the icons changed, and now it's expecting me to select two objects or click directly on the point of intersection. So I can find the intersection of the vertical and the horizontal by clicking on them vertical, horizontal. I'll just undo that. Or I could go directly onto the point there, and that would have the same effect. So that's created our gradient triangle, but with infinite lines. We would now like to build this into a triangle on the screen. So the first thing to do is to hide the vertical and the horizontal lines. These lines are here. You can see as I hover over them they go bold. The blue circle to the left allows me to quickly hide or show something. So if I click on these small blue circles, they will then disappear. Now I can add in my two line segments, and again this is a line tool, so it will be on the third set of tools. It's not the infinite line, so I go for my drop down here and pick up the line segment. This has two inputs, so I can click on A and then C for this line, and B and C for that line. Great thing about this is that it's immediately giving me the lengths of the lines as well here. So not only does line segment draw the line, it gives you a variable whose length is the line. Now what we want to do is just change the display of what's on the screen. We don't need C to be visible anymore, so we can hide it. We can then select each of these lines, and if you notice this graphic toolbar changes when I click on the object. Alternatively I could select the object from the algebra panel as well, it's the same object. Now I want to change its colour to green. I want to change its line thickness, and I want to show its value, in other words its length. And there it is. I can just drag that value slightly out of the way so it's clearer. Similarly for this line segment, I can change its colour to red, I can change its thickness, and I can show its value. And now we have got this gradient triangle. So the last thing we're going to do then is display the dynamic text on the screen, both for this calculation, 3.2 is 2 lots of 1.6, and for the algebra. So to do that, it's useful to remember which of D and E are, and there's a very quick way to rename objects. I want to remember that D is the difference in my x's and E is the difference in my y's. If I select D in the algebra plane, if I want to rename it, I literally just start typing. So if I start typing diff x now, you'll see it's immediately just type that and I hit enter and it's renamed it. Similarly, if I click on E and just start typing without pressing enter or anything else, diff y, it's renamed that. Very quick to rename things. Now what I'm going to do is create some dynamic text for the multiplication and the algebra. So text is three options along from the right. There's my text button, text, and I want to say that the difference in y is m times the difference in x's. Now the key thing is that they are dynamic objects, diff x, diff y and m, so I pick them up from the objects menu. So if I go to the objects menu, I'll find all my dynamic objects I've created in here, and I want to say diff y is equal to, I'm just typing equal there, m, again a dynamic object for the gradient, you'll see in the preview pane it's coming up here, multiplied by, I can get a proper multiplication symbol from the symbols menu, and finally diff x again is a dynamic object, and there it is. If I want to make that bigger, I click on it and you can see here I've got all the editing options I would expect to find in my graphics toolbar for text as soon as I've clicked on that object. Similarly, we can do a text for y minus y1 is mx minus x1. So I'm going to type that now, y minus as plain text, and then the object y1 equals the object m brackets x minus and then the object x1. And there is my formula. If you want it formatted as a proper piece of maths, click on the LaTeX formula, and there it is. Nice italic serif font there for the variables. Again, I can make that larger. And lastly, I like this y is mx plus c form. That's just object A, so I'm going to put that underneath that. Click on text again, click on the screen, literally just select the object A, lowercase a, and go for the LaTeX formula. This object is 2x minus 3, so that's what it puts in there. And I can make that medium. And there you have it. The point can be moved by moving it around the axes for your x1, y1. The gradient can be changed with this slider. And the point B can be moved up and down the line to show that the gradient triangle gives us a height is always the gradient times the base. Thank you for watching.